Coming at you from the nation that bombards you with anime information instead of rockets. This is the AnimeNation Weekly Podcast with John. We start off this week with the interesting news that Tensai Bakaban is finally, after 40 years, getting an anime film. In a manner of speaking, Frogman, the creator of Himitsu Kesha Takanotsume, and his Flash animation studio DLE will be creating the Tensai Bakavan Yomigaeru Flanders no Inu movie, or Tensai Bakavan Resurrection of the Dog of Flanders movie. This is, as you can already tell from the title, a parody film hybrid between Fujio Akatsuka's Tensai Bakaban and the classic anime television series Dog of Flanders, or Flanders of Inu. Dog of Flanders, the 1975 television series, is very, very famous for its final scene in which, this isn't really a spoiler at this point, Nello and Patrice pass away in a church. It's one of the most famous scenes in all of anime history. However, for the new Tensai Bakavan movie, rather than peacefully going out as classic children's literature characters, in this movie, Nello and his pet dog Patrice actually refuse to die and instead turn into evil, world vengeance-wreaking villains, zombies. So it's up to Bakaban, the genius, and his family to oppose the demonic threat of his undead boy and his dog. Tensai Bakaban, if you're not familiar with it, is a comedy series by Fujio Akatsuka that premiered in 1967 and had 4 anime television series. It's somewhat comparable to a Japanese version of The Simpsons, years before The Simpsons existed. It's often described as a story about a son with an idiotic father who believes he's a genius. But actually, the show typically does focus on the father a little bit more than description would suggest. But it's about a sort of dunderheaded family and the sort of troubles they get into while meaning well. Fujio Akatsuka passed away in 2008 of, I believe, pancreatic cancer. So, while there has never been an official Tensai Bakaban movie, this will sort of be the first film. Shinjiku Nakamura's Jinzo Romantica will be getting another anime television series. The brand new 18th collective volume of manga has come out with an advertising OB announcing that a 3rd season of the television series is in the works. The Boy Love manga premiered in 2003 and got 2 seasons of anime television series back in 2008, and then got an OAD episode in 2012. So the new TV series presumably will premiere either very late this year or early next year. Also, a little bit surprisingly, Kami-sama Hajimemashite will be getting a 2nd television series. The first TV series, based on the manga by Julieta Sakazaki, aired in 2012. So now, 2 years later, we're simply getting the announcement that it will be getting a 2nd season. This is rather late because typically shows like this get a 2nd season within about a year of the final episode of their 1st season, or don't get a 2nd season at all. So this one is getting its 2nd season relatively late compared to the usual anime industry standard. For those of you that are unfamiliar with the title, it is available recently released in America by Funimation under the title Kami-sama Kiss, as the manga was released here by Viz. It's a story about a young girl who moves out of her home and finds herself homeless. She then decides to start living at a shrine, which is also inhabited by a fox spirit, who tends to be a little bit antagonistic toward her in a sort of teasing, slightly mean-spirited way. So it's essentially a supernatural romantic comedy. Digimon is also getting another sequel, surprisingly, after a number of years. A new Digimon television series will premiere in Japan next spring. This one a sequel to the original 1999 television series. This one will mark the 15th anniversary of the Digimon anime franchise and will reintroduce the first TV series characters who are now 17 years old and in their presumably last year of high school. So it will be interesting to be reintroduced to the characters that many of us remember from many, many years ago, but now seeing them older and maybe a little wiser. On the American front, somewhat out of nowhere, Edward Zwick, the director of the Tom Cruise movie The Last Samurai, and Marshall Herskovich, the producer of the Tom Cruise movie The Last Samurai, have announced that they are collaborating to make an American live-action movie based on the current Japanese Soul Reviver manga. The Soul Reviver manga is conceptually created by and conceived and loosely written by Toru Fujisawa, the creator of GTO and Rosehip Zero, and illustrated by Manabu Ashihige. The manga premiered in 2011 and currently has, I believe, 4 collected volumes. It's a supernatural action manga. It's set in an alternate reality Tokyo in which humans that have passed away can actually be revived so long as their soul can be recollected. So if a person has died recently and their soul has not yet passed into oblivion, then the person can be revived. So the story stars a former detective and his essentially zombie female companion who work as soul revivers. They go into the afterlife and find, or as they call it, salvage, souls of the recently departed and bring them back so that the body can be revived. So there's a lot of swordplay, a lot of action, lots of zombies and monsters in the purgatory afterlife where souls go to before passing on. This does seem like it could inspire a pretty interesting, pretty exciting American live-action feature. Hopefully one with a somewhat similar concept, but much better execution than last summer's R.I.P.D. movie, for example. But we have yet to see whether this will ever actually come to fruition, because I'm sure many of us are aware that there are a number of manga and anime franchises licensed for American live-action feature adaptation which have yet to happen, including Lupin III, Cowboy Bebop, Death Note, and Akira. So, remains to be seen if we will ever actually see this Soul Reviver feature film. But, as always, we can hold out hope. In the more immediate tense, America is now home to some new anime releases. Viz Media has re-released the first 2 Bleach motion pictures, the Memories of Nobody and Diamond Dust Rebellion movies, now on a DVD double feature, retailing at only $15. So this is a great bargain for those of you that are fans of shonen anime or Bleach and have not picked up either of these movies on DVD or Blu-ray before. Viz also re-released both seasons of Vampire Knight, this time in a complete single collection. Previously, both seasons were available in 2-disc DVD sets. Now you can get all 4 discs in one set. Discotech released the first 5 Dr. Slump movies. This is a long, long time in coming, considering that Dr. Slump dates back to 1982 and has long been one of the fan-favorite, desirable licenses here in America that has never, in anime form, made it over here. Viz did release some of the manga, but the anime has never previously made it over here. Discotech also released the 2nd and 3rd US edit English dubbed seasons of Monster Rancher this past week. Now that all of the English dubbed Monster Rancher is available in America, we can look forward to this fall, hopefully, when we'll finally see a complete release of the English subtitled Monster Farmer, Japanese version of the show. Sentai Filmworks released the complete Problem Children Are Coming from Another World, Aren't They? Television series, known in Japan as Mondai Jitachi ga Isekai Kurukara So Desu yo. The DVD or Blu-ray release, your choice, does include the OVA home video episode, so you do get all 11 episodes. Now, sadly, like a lot of current anime television series, 11 episodes really only serve to introduce the characters, the world setting, and the story. However, if your expectations are not stellar, I think that you'll find that Mondai Jitachi is a pretty enjoyable show. While its 11 episodes really do sort of and distinctly leaving us wanting much more, the episodes themselves are quite enjoyable. They're animated well, the characterizations are quite interesting, and the story is really pretty fun. I can compare this to the more recent No Game, No Life. So if, for example, you enjoyed No Game, No Life, you'll probably also quite enjoy Mondai Jitachi ga Isekai So Desu yo. So this is one that I distinctly, relatively recommend. Funimation released the complete Senran Kagura Ninja Flash television series. However, what you're getting is the complete Japanese television broadcast series, excluding the Japanese home video omake episodes. Sadly, even though we were originally scheduled to get them, Funimation originally announced that we would get the 6 Japanese short home video episodes. Now Funimation has come out and confirmed that they did not get the home video license rights to those, so we do not get the Japanese home video 5-minute long bonus episodes. However, if you are a fan of Kunoichi anime, or if you are a fan of shows like Ikitosen and Queen's Blade, then this is probably one that you'll definitely be looking into. And if you are not a DVD advanced supporter of the Dear Brother licensing and release from Anime Souls, you can now acquire, as of this week, the first DVD collection of Onisama E, or Dear Brother, subtitled from Anime Souls at $45. This is $5 more than you would have minimum donating had you pre-ordered through Anime Souls, but then again, you also don't have the wait time now that you would have had to wait for had you been an advanced supporter through Anime Souls. Onisama E is one of the modern classics of dramatic shoujo anime. It's one that has inspired a number of other shows, for example, Utena. And this is a very limited release. Only roughly 2,000, 2,500 or so DVD volumes of the first set were produced, and close to half of those were distributed in advance to early supporters, licensing pledge sponsors, people like me that donated money in advance. So the remainder of the initial pressing of the DVDs are now available through select retailers to people that want to come in now afterwards and pick up the set. So these are very limited edition, and these are not widely distributed, so they probably won't be around for very long. So I do encourage you, if you're interested in Brother Dear Brother, if you want to support really grassroots anime licensing and distribution, if you want to directly support anime production studios, because that's where this is coming from, or if you're simply interested in the show or interested in collecting relatively rare limited edition anime DVDs, I recommend picking this one up sooner rather than later. In terms of this week's releases, I personally have not picked up anything I am interested in picking up Mondanji Tachi. Have not picked that up yet because I have to go out and buy a new car tomorrow, so my finances are a little bit limited. I'm also a little bit regretful that I personally have not picked up Disco Tetsu's Dr. Slump movie's release yet, but that is definitely one that I'm planning to look into purchasing probably in the next coming week. As I mentioned, I already supported and I already have my first DVD set of Brother Dear Brother. While I haven't purchased any new anime releases lately, I did come into possession of Viz Media's second and third Berserk movie Blu-rays. I want to express my gratitude to Otaku Utopia for contributing those to me. Thanks a lot, Chris. Chris Sasuga, the owner of Otaku Utopia out in Toledo, Ohio, brought me out to Glass City 4 last weekend as a guest. And while I was there, donated the concert, donated the 2 Berserk movies that I had not yet acquired for myself, and also donated 4 chili dogs to me, which were very tasty, and I do appreciate that as well. I have to say that going out to Glass City Con in Toledo, Ohio this past weekend was a wonderful experience. Although this, strictly speaking, was the 4th year of the convention, in another sense, this was almost like the 1st year of the convention, because Glass City 4 came 2.5 years after Glass City 3, and this was the first one held at a convention center rather than a college. So, in a lot of senses, Glass City 4, in terms of logistics, was almost like putting on a brand new first-year convention. Now, it was, regrettably, sadly, only a 2-day con, but it went very smoothly, as though this was a convention that had been running in this iteration for many years. Everything went very smoothly. I believe the convention attendance was somewhere around 1,200 people, which is certainly not bad at all for a small local convention. And I'm very much looking forward to Glass City 5 next year. Already, I'm thinking about new panels. For example, I'm thinking to myself that I think it might be pretty interesting to run a panel titled something along the lines of the classic anime every otaku should know. This would be a presentation in which I could show examples and introduce many of the seminal and very influential vintage anime that show up in homages and references in many contemporary anime. For example, many American anime fans these days may recognize the white, ghostly character that pops up in anime occasionally, but may not realize that that's actually a reference to the final episode of Ashika no Joe. Chris and I have also talked about perhaps indulging some affection of ours and hosting next year a Mad Bull 34 appreciation panel. That might certainly be a lot of fun. The panels that I attended this year were diverse and very interesting, ranging from how to present a panel, to The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, to Furry Curry. The events in the con were wonderful. I'm very personally gratified that I had an opportunity to meet and have some conversation with Amy Howard Wilson and her husband David G. Wilson. Amy Howard Wilson is the original voice of Nova in Star Blazers. So when I introduced myself to her, asked for an autograph, I literally could say that I grew up listening to her voice. Her husband, David Wilson, is a long time anime fan. He and I sat together and conducted an anime old fogies panel. He is about 4 years older than me, which means that actually he is just slightly one generation prior to me, because he was fortunate enough to be involved in the final years of the CFO, the Cartoon Fantasy Organization, which I never was. The Cartoon Fantasy Organization disbanded right when I came into the hobby. So I am just quite young enough to have not been able to be a member of the CFO. But it was really interesting discussing old memories of anime with David Wilson and our panel attendees. So, to the staff of Glass City 4, I say once again, I'm very grateful to you for bringing me out. I had a wonderful time. You put on a fantastic con, and if you're interested in having me back next year, I would be tremendously eager to come. On a side note, while doing the trivia contest at Glass City Con, I posed a question about the current boys volleyball anime series Haikyuu, and I was surprised that no one in the trivia contest audience was familiar with the show, even though it's now in its second kuru and is simulcasting on Crunchyroll. Similarly, at the Anime Old Fogies panel, I again mentioned Haikyuu, and again, no one in the audience was familiar with the show. This struck me as kind of strange. Having just been in Tokyo earlier this month, I know that Haikyuu is very, very popular in Tokyo right now. I saw Haikyuu merchandise almost everywhere. As I mentioned, the show is simulcasting on Crunchyroll right now, and it's one of the better sports anime in years. I'm completely enjoying it. But I was really surprised to see no awareness whatsoever of the title. So this suggests maybe, even still, Americans really just don't like sports anime. I'm currently keeping up to date with both Haikyuu and Baby Steps. I'm actually one episode behind on Haikyuu, but relatively I am keeping up on both Baby Steps and Haikyuu. So I think this may be for the first time in my life as an otaku that I'm simultaneously watching two sports anime. But I am watching both sports anime right now, and I want to say, if you're not watching Haikyuu, give it a shot. It's a really good show, very enjoyable, especially at times beautifully animated by Production IG, and featuring very nice character design. Really good quality show that I was quite surprised to find that very few people seem to have heard of. Since I came back from Glass City Con, I have not entirely unsurprisingly, but regrettably had 0 Ask John email questions arrive. None whatsoever. Now, I have admitted before, this is partially due to my own laxity in not responding to Ask John questions more promptly and vigorously. Also, I've known from the outset, back in 1999, when I started Ask John, that this would be a limited run. Eventually, as has happened, American fans would become knowledgeable enough about anime that they wouldn't need someone like me to explain anime any longer. However, if any of you viewers out there are still interested in my opinions, and I hope you are if you're listening to the podcast, feel free to send your Ask John questions my way via email. I'd be glad to answer them. I also want to address your attention to today's Ask John, because today's was an article about the prevalence of orange crates in anime. This is actually a question that's been on my mind for many years. I've actually been collecting screenshots of orange crates in anime for literally years. So I'm very proud, more so of the illustrations and the effort behind collecting them all than actually the intelligentsia behind the question. But I do encourage all of you, take a look at today's Ask John article, because it will probably fascinate you with an aspect of anime that you've never seen before. Likewise, I hope you'll also tune back in next week when I can, hopefully, introduce you to more trivia and information about anime that you're probably not familiar with or would like to hear more about. So thanks for tuning in this week, and I hope I'll talk to you again next week. Till then, bye-bye.